Howdy all! So today I am here with another booktube video, and I am going to be doing my October wrap up and what I hope to read in November. So my TBR, my TV read for November. So kicking off, let's start with the books that I read during the spooky month. I didn't really read a lot of spooky, well, I mean, you could say these are spooky-ish books. They've got a hint, but they're not straight up horror or anything like that. So the first book I read was 1984 by George Orwell. This is a book I've already done a dedicated review to, so if you do want to see my in-depth thoughts and my review of it, you're more than welcome to check that out. I'll leave it in the cards for you so you can watch later on if you'd like to. So in this, just briefly, because I do go over the synopsis a little bit in that video as well, but we're following Winston Smith, and he is in this sort of world where there is this regime of people following this Big Brother-esque figure. They are referred to as party members, and they basically don't have the freedom to do anything. They work entirely for Big Brother, and any thoughts kind of straying away from what they know and what they are told to be the truth is considered thought crime, and these people disappear forever. And Winston is one of these people that is beginning to express his feelings more, not vocally, but more riskily, I don't know what the word would be for that. And he knows he's basically a dead man walking, but he is very against this regime because he remembers a time where this didn't happen, where people were free, and he wants that back. So yeah, this is a really interesting book. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I really did like this. Yeah, and if you want to know more of my thoughts, as I mentioned already, check out that video. Next up, I read A Whole New World by Liz Braswell. Oh my god, I totally threw the book on the floor. Oh my god. Okay, yep. Luckily it's a bit floppy, otherwise I would have mashed it up. But this is The Whole New World by Liz Braswell. So this is a sort of what if story of Aladdin. So there are loads of these kind of books that she's written. I think other authors have written similar things as well, where they take a Disney story and they twist it. It's one of the Twisted Tale stories. So this one follows the idea of what if Aladdin didn't find the lamp, what if it wasn't him that used it for whatever purposes, and someone with a ulterior motive, evil doings, got it instead, and it follows that sort of storyline. I don't know about this one, so I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I feel like we had some really good plot twists. I quite enjoyed the ending, and eventually it felt original and like its own story, but I did struggle because it wasn't as it wasn't as dark as I had expected. But knowing this is a Disney retelling, and I think it is aimed at a younger audience, I should have just known that it wouldn't be darker. Like, for some reason I got in my head, ooh, it's going to be a little bit creepy, but in some instances there were scenes that were kind of shockingly dark. I think I got in my head, I got the idea in my head that it wasn't going to turn that way, and it did, and I was like, oh, that's actually a little bit disturbing. There was no in between. The beginning is very copy and paste of the original, so I think I saw some other reviewer mention that too. It does turn into its own, but you have to get through the beginning original story first, which is a little bit frustrating because it is apparently the author also literally had chunks. This is what this reviewer said. I can't remember the name. It was on Goodreads, but they had chunks of actual dialect from like the film or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, that is a little bit but I guess they kind of had to have that build up of the beginning before it turned completely different. And then there was just a lack of characters that I would have loved to have seen more. I needed more Raja, Abu, and Carpet, like the flying carpet. I just felt like those characters felt a little bit more hollowed out. And I mean, I know they're like animals and like objects, but when you watch the film, they feel like they have so much more connection with Aladdin and Jasmine and all of that. But I don't know, yeah, I didn't get that connection here, but it was enjoyable. I ended up, like, when I finished it, this turned into sort of like my work reading book, and when I finished it, I felt myself like excited to pick it up at work, and then I was like, oh, but it's done. So I did, like, I longed for it afterwards. I was like, that was actually really quite enjoyable, but it's not something that I would probably be super excited to continue with the rest straight away. Like I got this in a box set with 2 other books for the Twisted Tales, and I'm not in any rush to pick up the other 2 just yet, just because I don't know, it's not exactly what I thought, but also I could do without it at the minute, but it was still enjoyable nonetheless. The next book I read was The Dreadful Tale of Prosper Reddin by Alexandra Bracken. Now this is a book that is my first from this author, and I really enjoyed it. I gave this one a 4 stars, and we're following a character called Prosper Reddin. He is one of the children of this like founder family. They live in a town called Red Hood. I always want to say Redwood, but it's Red Hood, I believe. And the Reddin family has always had this massive amount of good luck. They're very successful. They founded the town. But there's something sinister in that. It tells you on the synopsis here that basically there is a demon living inside Prosper. He is one of the only people in this family that is failing. He's not achieving much. He doesn't know why, but he also doesn't like the attention and limelight, and he sort of hates all this success because it's twisted his family. But yeah, it turns out there's a demon living inside Prosper, and he is actually the cause of the family's good luck. But he's hell-bent on revenge now because something happened, and the contract written between the family and the demon to get this good luck, get all these amazing things happen to them, has been broken, and he wants to get revenge for that, and also find out how to get back to downstairs, which is the realm that he reigns over. So it is a fantastic novel. I don't know whether it's YA or middle grade. I feel like it's a smidgen between the 2, but I really did like this. I loved the witty conversation between Prosper and the demon that lived inside him called Alistair. I felt like, yeah, it was a crazy situation, but the conversation back and forth was so funny at times, also very informative at others, but I just liked that sort of back and forth between the 2. I always love a curse and magic sort of aspect in a story, and that was no different here. I absolutely adored that part, especially when we got to learn more about specifically the curse within this story. I loved the storytelling, the different point of views. We only had a few point of views to follow, but I loved like the back and forth once again between those. And really, I don't have anything too negative to say. You might wonder why not the 5 stars then. Just sometimes, even though I can really love a book and really enjoy it, and there's nothing really negative about it, I just don't have that, wow, I will never forget this, this is one of the favourite books of all time. You know, it was still amazing, it had really good points, but it's not quite 5 stars for some reason. I don't really have any way to explain that. But yeah, I didn't know there was a second book until I was like reading this, and I believe it follows more about Alistair. I don't know if it just ends straight after this book, but more from Alistair's point of view. We shall see. And then lastly, I read my first Agatha Christie book, A Caribbean Mystery. My only other kind of run-in with Agatha Christie's work was an what's it called, a televised sort of version of one of her books. It was And Then There Was None, and it came on as like a 3-part drama on the BBC one Christmas, like a couple of Christmases ago, and I really loved that. I loved the tone of it, I loved how it felt, the mystery around it, the suspense, and I felt like that tone actually got it right. Well, even though I've not read that book, I felt like that tone is definitely evident in this book, so I feel like the producers of the show got Christie's writing right in that way. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I literally only my first book from her, so I maybe can't say too much on that. But anyway, back to this book. So Miss Marple is on holiday in the Caribbean, courtesy of her nephew, who says he should basically have a getaway, relax, you know, have some good sunshine for her health. And of course things are not going to go smoothly. There is a murder, there is suspicion, and people want to know what's going on, what's ruining their holiday, if they should leave, who's out to kill these people and why. So I gave this a 4 stars. I thought it was such a good read. I'm really happy that this is my first book from her. I like that we had this backdrop of the Caribbean to sort of introduce me into a nice summery read when it wasn't quite so nice and summery outside. I couldn't guess the murderer at all. I really loved how cunning Miss Marple was, and I really enjoyed the plot too. I will say this is something I think I've forgot to mention in my written review. I'll have to remember to write it in, but you got to kind of not ignore, but realise that this was written at a time where certain words and terminology was used freely, and it wasn't, maybe it wasn't considered as a slur, or it was a slur that was just taken aboard and accepted, like nobody really spoke against it. But there are some terms in here nowadays that definitely wouldn't fly nowadays. There's some words in here that we use that wouldn't be okay nowadays, if that makes sense. So if you get through that, it's a really good book. It's not something that really bothered me because I knew going in this was an older novel and it probably would have stuff like that in there, so it didn't really, not that it didn't bother me, but I didn't think too much about it. I just read it for the story, you know. I will say that after the climax of the whodunit, this is whodunit, we found out, it just rushed to the end, so I would have liked a little bit more time because we spent so much time getting to know these characters individually through Miss Marple's questioning and seemingly friendly chatter when really she was kind of just scoping everybody out. So I felt like we were owed a better aftermath than what we got, particularly with the murderer, for example. I want to know their true motives. Yes, we got it to an extent, but I want to hear from them, you know. And lastly, I will say I did struggle a little bit with the cast just because there's so many characters to follow from. It's something that I struggle with generally when there's more than, I'd say, I don't know, we're not even following from their point of view so much. There are a few chapters from different people's point of view, but it's more that Miss Marple's talking to all these different characters and it's difficult to remember who's who and who's in connection to who, especially when they're not, like, not that I'd want an over description of what they look like, but it's not too thorough in giving me that sort of, this is what that person looks like and how they act, so I can quickly distinguish between them. So yeah, it's something that I face, as I say, a lot in other books, but I will say in this case it didn't hinder my enjoyment of the book. It's just something that I will acknowledge that I struggled through, but I still enjoyed it regardless. So those are all the books that I read during October. I feel like I didn't read a lot as I had the past like month, but they were all quality books, I would say. They were bigger than usual. I feel like I was picking up a few smaller books last time, so I don't know, I feel like I'm happy with the amount I read. So quickly going to the reading breakdown. I didn't read any library loans. I read, all my books were physical, so I read 4 physical books. No magazines, no loans from friends or family. I was trying to just getting through my stash of books that I owned, and overall I read 4 books. So let's just go on to my November TBR. So during the month we have another year-a-thon that I'm hoping to take part in. This one is running from the 4th to the 10th of November, which is the first full week of November, and it is following mythology and retellings. So I saved these books, I bought these books specifically for this, well, not specifically, but once I got them I was like, oh, that's a good idea, maybe I'll buy them all for this and save them. I want to try and read, it probably won't get done in the whole week, but for the whole month at least, I'm trying to aim to read the whole of the Trials of Apollo books by Rick Riordan. So the first book is The Hidden Oracle, then we've got The Dark Prophecy, and then we've got The Burning Maze. Now, I haven't read a Rick Riordan book for way too long, it seems. He's one of my favourite authors, I would say, and I'm really looking forward to jumping back into his worlds. When this book came out, like originally, I was so excited to read about Apollo, like, oh my god. But then I thought, I want to get the rest of his books in the American covers because I find them so much more stunning than the ones that we have here in the UK. So I held out and eventually I got them, and I'm very happy. So hopefully this is what I'll be dedicating myself for in the first week of November. I wanted to do a little bit of a vlog, just reading these books, not necessarily for the year-a-thon, but just reading these books. But I don't know if I'll do that now because work is a killer and I'm always tired all the time, and I don't know. We shall see how that goes. I might do a little snippet to include it in the wrap-up, maybe just of that week. We shall see, I'm not sure. I also hope to start something by Philip Pullman because on the 3rd of November, which probably would have already have passed by the time this gets up. Happy birthday, Ebony, by the way, and also happy birthday to Lauren, both my cousins. Her birthday, Lauren's birthday is later on in the month, and happy birthday to my auntie as well, which is their mother, which is also later on in the month. But anyway, by the time this is up, this show would have started. It's His Dark Materials. They actually made a TV adaptation of Philip Pullman's, you know, The Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, The Amber Spyglass. They might be in the wrong order, I can't remember. And that's a book series that I have loved for ages, but I have never reread it. I don't really reread too much, to be fair. So I really wanted to get to, originally I wanted to pick up the Book of Dust because I recently bought the second one as well. This is volume 1, Le Belle Sauvage, and this is like a continuation, I think, like the origins of Dust that you find out more about, or a little bit about, in the original trilogy. But then I thought, oh, maybe I should read the books as the TV show goes. But then I thought, there's 3 books. I want to read the Book of Dust. I really want to try and get to that this month. I probably won't. But I thought maybe I should read the original trilogy alongside it. But then I realised that I had the Northern Lights graphic novel. But I feel like if I just read this and then go on to the Book of Dust, I need to continue this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'm really confusing myself with what I'd like to do. I've also got this big textbook thing analysing the original trilogy that I had intended to read whilst reading along the original books for a reread. This is getting even more confusing, I swear. I thought if I sounded it out it would have made more sense, but it really doesn't. So yeah, I don't really know what I want to do. I'm kind of leaning more to the side of picking this up like around the time the TV show starts. I also don't know if I'm going to watch the TV show as it airs, or if I'm going to wait for the whole season to be up, or at least a couple of episodes, and then sort of watch them back to back. But yeah, I feel like if I start this and then I don't have the other graphic novels, I don't even know if there are any other graphic novels yet, and then go on to this, there's going to be a big timeline gap, and it has been so long since I read it. But then I'll have the TV show to remind me, and I'm kind of leaning a bit to this idea, although it sort of doesn't make sense to me, but we shall see. I hope to read a Philip Pullman book this month if I can get through my Rick Riordan books. We shall see. Wish me luck. I feel like we got a hefty amount of stuff to be getting through, and as I say, I'm always tired all the time, so that may not happen, but there it is. I've spoken it into the universe. I hope that I can do at least some of these books. That will make me very happy. So let me know if you're taking part in any readathons at all during November, what you hope to read. Let me know what you read during October, if you read any more like spooky books, any scary things, any thrillers. I'd love to know. And yeah, I'll speak to you in another video soon. Bye bye.